let me first start with our lovely Sadhguru. He has a story, and then I'm going to try and organize my different notes that I have around me. So he's talking about a Zen tradition of some sort, and the message is that there's a group of disciples that are picking on this one disciple who's a thief and who consistently keeps stealing, and they tell the master that he has to kick him out because they've forgiven him already multiple times and he keeps on stealing. And the master says to them, no, you can leave. I will not kick him out. Okay, so as Sadhguru points out, a human being may have the strength to face any kind of punishment given to him, but he will be defeated by immense compassion. Punishments can make a person rock solid, but compassion beyond reason will shatter him. This is a feeling that I do know, the shatter, the word. And from compassion training therapy, Russell L. Coates, and focus therapy, he says it in this way. When a person has shame, they have like this shame Teflon bag. So anything that's good will bounce off of their brain, if you will. Because the adaptive child is going to come up for any person who has basically attachment wounds, charged states that are not brought to functional adulthood, and or unresolved trauma. They all are in different ways the same thing because it's transference. It's a person who begins to be in their charge state, but also they will have a shame, blame, fault, revenge cycle. So not only will they ruminate, they will overgeneralize, they will create narratives. Let me in fact find that one article, because this is very much, I've seen it all over the place. It's not just disorganized attachment. I hear people in 4D plane, 3D, all these other soul age groups talking about this all the time. So black and white thinking, there's no gray, hot and cold. They actually can't handle anything that's in the middle because that will make them feel that they don't know what's going on. But it's really because they are already scanning territory with the adaptive child, which is trying to prove they're right or wrong, or not wrong, but trying to figure out how to stay safe, going to control or try to control the person and or situation. They're in a safety behavior. Then if that's not going to work, they're going to make it about themselves in one way, shape, or form. There can be this way of doing inner critic, outer critic. There's many mechanisms that a person will engage in when they're not just there because they want to enjoy each other's company. Most people are not functional adults. They are only with their clan. That doesn't make you a functional adult. It makes you a person who has a clan, and you're going to feel safe with the group that you've decided is your group. I'm saying a 5DC person, enlightenment soul age group, restorative embodied self, integrated mind, we're safe with anyone. Of course, we will note that some will say, "Whoa, let me put you with all these people." Well, go for it. I mean, it's not going to happen. I get it. You don't like that I'm compassionate, loving, and that I care, but I can't do anything about it. I'm so sorry that I don't actually choose to be in certain circumstances, and you want to give me hypotheticals that won't ever happen. So that's what happens when an adaptive child meets a person who actually does know that every human being is an infinite higher human consciousness potential. Number 2, omnipotent notions. So when people are adaptive children and their brain is literally scanning each other, the 4D people go all over this one. Have control over someone else's thoughts, feelings, progression. And so good at manipulating people because they're empaths. We're all empaths, by the way, because we all have nervous systems that speak to each other. They think of all the ways, people thinking in their brain, all the ways that a conversation can go, everything that might take place. So they're like literally their brains actively looking into all of this. And I've met moderate versions and extreme versions. So before they even get to a conversation and interaction, a person who's an adaptive child, so they're in a safety behavior, they're not wanting to engage just for the pure pleasure. They're trying to figure out everything, which is also why they're not mindful. They're not in mind sight. They're not an integrated mind. There is not emotions here. There is left brain, let me make sure I'm safe. And here's basically only going to come up if it gets triggered or for some other reason. And this is where there's many variables again. So thinking of all the ways a conversation can go. And once they screw that one up, then they're like, then some people, now the journey just got that much bigger. Now they're going to have to figure out, was I wrong? Were they wrong? Who was it? Which is why moving from unbridled self to I'm going to retaliate because you hurt me. And then here's where they're making up in their own mind a whole story of a hero and a villain. And I've seen it so many times, it's not even funny. Narrative discrepancies. They won't notice their inconsistencies. This is the part. That's why there's gaslighting. There are people that actually have done this my entire life. That's why I don't use these terms. Manipulating, gaslighting. Any adoptive child will at some point, form or another, present this to me. And I'm like, now I know what's happening. It's so awesome. I'm not going to go telling them that because I tried as a kid. Why are you inconsistent? Why are you telling me this? And to this day, so as an adult, actually, and a mystic, there are people, my lovely loved ones, I love them to death. But some of them, I think, year after year after year, they actually come for the same consultations. And I literally am like, but you remember last year, no, but that's different. What about this year? Then no, but that's different. Okay, narrative discrepancies, like literally a person's not aware of themselves, but these are all people who are conscious, they're adults, they're talking about themselves as intellectually savvy. Thank you again, somatics and sensory motor therapists, for making it clear that I have a brain that optimally works and other people don't recognize certain things. I know, for example, when it comes to left mode, horrible memory. Ask me what I learned in college, I cannot remember. Ask me what I observe about people's behavior, I won't tell you, but I will note things. And see, the thing about the right mode, it sees the patterns of the patterns and the parts of the parts, so we don't need to keep it separated. Because once your rumination cycle, because that's what it is to be in a karmic cycle wheel, and shame, blame, fault, revenge, these are mental prisons, not just because of the karma wheel. Like the actual somatic experts talk about this, the trauma experts. They're in mental prisons because the rumination is hero, villain, and never really taking the steps to move into stories. Because their emotions, they don't actually mature them. A lot of people, they are the same ones who say you have to have human suffering. Yes, they don't have a relationship with their emotions yet, with a ventral vagal state. What that means is if they get sad or very, very upset, that their body gets rigid and they get more angry and it's hard for them to think. The ones of us who don't get more angry and rigid when we're sad, it's because we know why we're sad. It will be something important. If we get mad, we'll know why we're mad. It means it's important. We don't ruminate. Oh, I'm mad. Yeah, this thing just happened. That's why we easily also can process it. And the more you do it, see, the brain is like a muscle. And so integration, you move yourself into it. And that's because you choose to navigate left and right together versus ignore the right, meaning let my transference just be used again and again and again and not try to become more compassionate. Most people don't. In fact, they have many ways to tell me of my pink tainted glasses, for example. So 5D mystic in the Enlightenment Soul Age group will hear about the pink tainted glasses and a lot more. Narrative discrepancies, again, that one's pretty clear. Overgeneralizations, which studies have shown keep people in their trauma. PTSD. The study shows there's the ones who don't recover like others. It's because of these overgeneralizations. Go ask people about stereotypes between the genders. Lo and behold, plenty of friends, man. Some of them, again, I don't want to say it, but they could be completely out of their suffering, except for they're romanticizing everything that is in drama land. And they don't know about good somatics and sensory motor therapists. They know about the ones who say emotions are stupid. Yes, I see a lot of them. Or I love when there's the ones who are talking about how to create change by getting into fighting mode. It's like, the fighting mode is your modulated embodied self. You're not yet optimal. You would want to be at ease and lovey-dovey, all that comfy. So as a person who does actually unconditionally love humanity, I have seen the disgusted eyes of people. I just didn't know that those were all people with a shame cycle. And now that I know it doesn't change anything, I just feel sad for them. And then I feel sad that they think that their disgust is justified versus going to Learn about what it means to be a human, and to know that your body actually can have this thing called dysregulated or modulated. That you can have a non-secure attachment. I'm sad that people don't look up what it means to be a person. I looked it up because I like helping people, to support you to be yourself, not me, and to be your heart, not my heart, and your brain, not my brain. But apparently, why would I want to be myself? I'm disgusting. That's an unworthiness shame cycle. No one's disgusting. It's an actual posture that we will have taken from our ancestors. And then obviously some people also have an environment that, unfortunately, those same caregivers and just everything will be objectifying them, treating them like shit. They will feel helpless. Hopeless is why they will say humans are disgusting, I'm disgusting, and nobody pays attention to how could you talk about disgusting. There's a bunch of stories that people know about. Somatic sensory motor, anyone? Not those stories, apparently. So the vilification. Stressed over conflict with someone, a person will become paranoid or defensive. They will vilify those individuals, and they will presume that at the basis of partnerships of any type, there's a power struggle. So they're automatically going to be, they're trying. Again, 4D, man, don't get me started on that. Between men and women, I know what you're doing. I've seen videos on TikTok of these people. I have clairs, and I can see you're karmic, and you're an energy vampire. And I'm like, okay, wait, that right there is not a very beautiful, what happens here, what's happening. So plenty of movies are happening. They will try to actually exert power or control, and if that doesn't work, well, there you go, there's retaliation and withdrawal. So it's a very sad story when things like this happen. I've seen it too many times to care to mention. And as for our lovely story, as I was saying, a human being may have the strength to face any kind of punishment given to him, but he will be defeated by immense compassion. Punishments can make a person rock solid, but compassion beyond reason will shatter him. As you become increasingly hard on a person, he becomes more and more capable of handling the punishments you mete out. It's an infant who grows up with shame. They will look like a rock. The body has this thing called an armor, something. And it's because your body's protecting you. So it's a very sad story where people don't realize that shaming each other is actually just allowing each other to stay in areas that are not their optimal emotional self as an adult. Every person's a beautiful, beautiful person if they tap into their emotional self first, and then understand that shame is not anyone's fault, nor is unresolved trauma, nor are any of the actual unfortunate attachment wounds that people will use upon each other. But I also know of this thing called free will, and I've met many people that justify their actual structural dissociation, their revenge, spite, and tones, and a lot more, their spiteful ways, their lying, their actual justification of emotional manipulation. Gossip. I mean, the gossip, though, is the least of the ones. It's actually when I see people that are pretending, and they're not even pretending. They think they know what they're talking about. They're not. They don't. It's very sad when you give up on love because you choose fear, and you are so stubborn that you choose to continue to disregard what you're doing as an adult. Because I kind of get it if you're a child or a teenager, but once you're an adult, and it's 2023. So there's also a lot of good information online if people got creative and caring about their emotional layer versus just, again, oh no, you have to suffer because that's how it goes. Okay. As you become increasingly hard on a person, why can someone become harder? Because they already are helpless. They felt helpless when they were an infant. Now they're still helpless, and they choose to think that it's humanity or evil. Yeah. A spiritual master or guru does not judge somebody, nor does a 5DC person in the Enlightenment Soul Age group. We do not judge somebody based on what they are doing. So yeah, the biological rudeness. Someone who plans to use a story here. Also, he says a guru will look at what kind of inner potential each person carries. Yes, every human being that is in their integrated mind, and a functional adult will see this and will know that every person can become their functional adult if they get out of their shame Teflon bag mind. He will not neglect anyone just because he does not have the necessary capability right now. Everyone has the capability of learning about somatics and sensory motor and what a infinite higher human consciousness potential being can do. Whoever calls themselves, he says, disciples, should be willing to make use of every opportunity for their growth and transformation. And he's here talking about those who want to follow a guru, right? Especially, he says, if a situation that does not sit well with them arises, it is the best situation for them to transform themselves. You know how many mystics in 4D land I hear thinking they're anointed ones and they're the lighthouses and other people are the dark houses? Let's go and present this one to them. Instead, if they put conditions on the guru, asking him to do this or that, there's your adaptive child. I'm going to prove I'm right while I'm discussing and basically arguing with you with an insecure ego. Oh, I'm going to try and control you now. Let me tell you what lists of things you should or shouldn't do. Let me present to you the conditions that will tell you how you'll be loved or not loved. Shame, blame, fault, revenge, human suffering, adaptive child, trauma. Unresolved, attachment wounds, very basic, very much in need of a lot more compassionate and a lot more of the somatic empaths. 5D people, come on board. We talk about this all the time. It's called love language, which is pure, which is unconditional, flaws, imperfections, biological rudeness, not a problem. Emotional security, it's of the self-empowered individual who sits in their ventral vagal state with the down-regulated default mode network that knows mindfulness, mindsight, even before knowing all of these beautiful, fantastic words, and that our brain is optimally working, the left and right together. But I do have a horrible memory, so there, and I can repeat myself a lot of times and be so annoying, so we all will get some side of the spectrum of something, right? Again, perfection, illusion. Hello, anyone? Instead, they put conditions. Thank you, adoptive children. And when that happens, he says, this means their only intention is in throwing their weight around. Yes, they need to prove they're right, because that's the only way an insecure ego will think they are valued. Because in the meantime, that limbic system is deciding what is of value, and they're still looking for who's going to give me a thumbs up and make sure I'm safe. Because again, shame comes from our ancestors when we were one with lions and bears and tigers. So that posture is actually one of subservience, because you're bigger and stronger than I am. And what people don't realize is we're not in that time anymore, but the posture is still that. And so helplessness is still the same, and your nervous system and your brain is actually affecting this. So shaming someone who already has shame is not going to help inspire them. It's going to make them stay that way, get harder. When they meet compassion, it doesn't mean that it does anything either. It shatters something, because it's them being accepted from someone who's saying, I'm here to love you as you are. You take my hand? But that 7-month-old didn't have this. The body still remembers that this did not happen, and in a way that is not very pleasant. So the transformation is not of interest. Sadhguru goes on to say, don't waste the time. And here's where people who are in dysregulated and or modulated embodied selves in their biological rudeness, in their shame cycles, they actually are not in the prefrontal cortex. They're not hearing you from a safe body. They're hearing you from a body that is in dysregulation, modulation, or anyways trying to stay safe. Their default mode network has already been engaging on how to try and strategize whatever it is that's going on. And so the rigidity that comes from people who are treated in certain ways is a rigidity called an armor. These stories, I've heard many of them, they're always the same. It's he said, she said, they said, it's my fault, their fault. There's just so many different areas between the spiritual and the metaphysics of esotericism that talk about karmics and evil energy vampires and 3D that still believes in the devil. And as someone who has definitely, again, experiences in the state that is of those in the spiritual and spirituality community, I will tell you, never once in my life did I believe in evil this way. Because when I contemplated it when I was a kid growing up and I had God and Jesus introduced to me, it was like, if evil existed, I think that it would first of all and foremost, not make itself known whatsoever. It would be such a genius. I don't see anyone being a genius. In fact, when people are in their shame cycle, manipulation, gaslighting, all of those tactics are not tactics for a person who actually leads with the right mode. It is the part that picks up on nonverbal. So we will not necessarily know about gossiping or, the whole like chatter behind the back, but we'll know about other stuff. And the reality is, though, a 5DC person, again, isn't out to try and affect other states of consciousness. You're a fragment, I'm a fragment. If you want to stay in a shame Teflon bag brain, I can't do anything about it besides present to you good somatics and sensory motor therapists, meaning that they exist. Oh, and that evil doesn't. That is a very sad story. So when you see people doing what is in the movies, I don't even call it 3D, 4D alone. I call it people who don't know that their ego self never got to grow up because they're choosing to deflect their very emotional vulnerability by saying, I'm gonna hide my heart away and do whatever it is to make sure nobody crushes me. And they stay in that rigidity and the bullshit story. That's the simplest one of them all. So compassion, it's heartbreaking to those who have shame because that forces them to actually be seen. And not forces because somebody's forcing, is that some of us, we are just unconditionally loving with flaws and imperfections. We don't have this thing called hate or anger or judgment. We understand because we sense the inner child, the fragment that is ready to be seen. And we actually always say, we're here, you're beautiful with that unique personality. And when it's biological rudeness time, we will know how to use our nice tone. Sometimes not always nice, but we'll try. And when we don't have a nice tone, we actually apologize because that's what grown-ups do. We are only unconditionally loving because we understand that shame is not something chosen and it doesn't want to be seen. It's actually very sad. The part that it's heartbreaking, the way that Sadhguru describes, it's an experience that any Enlightenment Soul Age Group 5D mystic will know. And with the somatic experts, you understand what this heartbreak, gut wrench, torn apart. And so it's only the person who can recognize, wow, wait a minute, because I didn't receive this type of love by being welcomed this way. And again, the psychoeducation is what's going to get somebody to understand this, not the rigid thinkers who say emotions are stupid, and not only spirituality and not only metaphysics esotericism. Yoga is a portfolio of ventral vagal nervous system exercises. Furthermore, it helps you to start learning mindfulness, which means you start working with your neo or prefrontal cortex. And that's where you learn to use your human brain and your human nervous system. It's always going to be special, but bringing human, spiritual, and spirituality together makes it a lot more. Unconditional love, very easy peasy. For those of you who are 5DC, welcome. Hopefully you'll tune in to the episodes on the only audio versions. In the meantime, be kind, be compassionate, and see you again soon.